Okay, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you can see and hear me clearly, please drop a 1 in the live chat, and then we can get today's stream started. As I'm waiting for the ones to come in, as usual, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, because that is the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does, that it helps to make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get the notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm as well. Secondly, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you've been ghost watching this channel for quite some time now, I see you guys. Please do me a favor and yourself a favor by hitting the subscribe button, as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button, so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms to your family and friends to inform them on this news and information. And yes, that does help to give me a slight boost in the YouTube algorithm as well. And with the intro out of the way, let's get into today's show. Let's get into it, because everybody is in shambles right now on the DNC side of things. They're in complete shambles over new polling numbers that have come out showing that Donald Trump is gaining, and I shouldn't just say gaining momentum, he has taken the lead in numerous key battleground swing states. He's taken the lead, and particularly MSNBC is having a hard time rationalizing and justifying why this is. So then they go on to place the blame on a few people, but we'll get to who they place the blame on in a moment. But it's really crybaby logic that doesn't make any sense. And to be honest with you, it just continues to go to show, when we get to the MSNBC portion of this discussion, that once again, as I always say, the people who cry the most about saving democracy are the ones who are the most anti-democratic. But we're going to get into that during the MSNBC portion. First, what I want to do is pull up the CNN clip right here discussing the new polling numbers concerning Donald Trump. And there's also new numbers as well concerning the Black and Hispanic vote as well, and how it relates to Kamala Harris and essentially her downfall and her doom in this election. So let's jump into this, man. Let's get into this right now. Let's get into the CNN video first.
If Harris is able to hold.
Let me rewind it back just a little bit, and please hit the like button if you haven't done that already.
2024 lead, while some national polls show support for Vice President Harris ticking up following her debate with former President Trump, a new CNN poll of polls finds the race is still essentially locked in a tie with no clear leader. And much more importantly, in the critical battleground states that will decide who actually wins control of the White House, new polls in those swing states show Donald Trump with a slight advantage in the Sun Belt. CNN's Harry Enton is live at the Magic Wall for us in New York. Harry, walk us through the numbers.
Yeah, I care a lot more about these Sun Belt battleground states than I do that national polling leader, because the fact is it's the Electoral College. So let's take a look at where we are in these Sun Belt battleground states. And you can see a lot more red on your screen. In fact, there is no blue on your screen. Arizona, Donald Trump up by 5.
I'm sorry to cut that off early, but I like when he said a lot of red on your screen. As a matter of fact, there is no blue on your screen. That just sounded good, didn't it? That just sounds great. I'll rewind that back one more time. It sounded really good. I like that.
Let's take a look at where we are in these Sun Belt battleground states. And you can see a lot more red on your screen. In fact, there is no blue on your screen. Arizona, Donald Trump up by 5 points. Georgia, we're characterizing it as no clear leader, but he's got 4 points ahead of Kamala Harris. And in the great state of North Carolina, it's Donald Trump by 3 points. Again, no clear leader. I should note that these results are a little bit more Republican-leaning than the averages are in these states. But even in the averages, they all show Donald Trump slightly ahead in these 3 pivotal battleground states, 2 of which Joe Biden carried last time around, Arizona and Georgia.
So when you drill down into the data, what are some of the factors that explain why these numbers are friendly to Donald Trump?
Okay, before we move on to that, I want to touch on this here. It wasn't that long ago when, the DNC and Harris supporters were running around doing victory laps, right? It wasn't that long ago when they were doing victory laps, given the fact that the polling that many of us question, but we'll leave those questions to ourselves at the moment, where the polling was just showing apparently Kamala Harris was blowing Trump out of the water in every battleground state nationally. Kamala Harris was just up by like 1,000 points on every poll, right, that we saw. Since then, obviously, Kamala Harris has done a number of T-ball interviews. She failed tragically in a 3-on-1 debate that was skewed in her favor. And in the midst of all of this calamity surrounding Kamala Harris's inability to just give a decent interview, let alone debate, what we see now is Donald Trump taking the lead in key battleground states where he was once apparently losing by 1,000 points in each state. Well, why is that, right? If we're going to take the polling on face value, funny business aside, how did this happen? Right? How did he go from being down 1,000 points to up 5, 4, and 3 points in these key states? What you're looking at here is a clear example of one person running a presidential campaign on fear mongering, which is Kamala Harris, and another person running a political campaign on reality, which is Donald Trump. One person is telling you Trump is the boogeyman and he's going to get you, and all this bad stuff is going to happen if he gets into office, because I guess he's personally just going to do all this horrible stuff and sign executive orders that'll put people in chains and put people in jail and get them deleted. Stuff that isn't going to happen and that didn't happen while he was in office. They're running a campaign on the fear of what may happen, where Donald Trump is running his campaign on the reality of what's happening right now, currently in this country, and what he plans to do to fix it. And that's something that Kamala Harris seems to have a trouble with doing, is explaining how she can fix the mess that her and Joe Biden created. But let's carry on. And I want to rewind this back just a little bit.
Trump up by 5 points. Georgia, we're characterizing it as no clear leader, but he's got 4 points ahead of Kamala Harris. And in the great state of North Carolina, it's Donald Trump by 3 points. Again, no clear leader. I should note that these results are a little bit more Republican-leaning than the averages are in these states. But even in the averages, they all show Donald Trump slightly ahead in these 3 pivotal battleground states, 2 of which Joe Biden carried last time around, Arizona and Georgia.
So when you drill down into the data, what are some of the factors that explain why these numbers are friendly to Donald Trump?
Yeah, why are they? Let's dig deep down into those crosstabs, all right? I think this will give you an indication why. All right, what's the most important issue for determining your November vote? And this is Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and average. Look at what's number one, the economy / inflation, 31%. That's a great issue for Donald Trump. He's always led on the economy and inflation. How about immigration? Issue number 2, 16%. Another great issue for Donald Trump. Only when we get down here to abortion at 16% is where Kamala Harris does particularly well. So 2 of the 3 top issues are issues on which Donald Trump does better than Kamala Harris. So not much of a surprise that he's leading the poll.
Stop right there. Once again, they're explaining, without saying it directly, what I stated earlier as true. Fear-mongering versus reality. Economy and inflation, Trump is winning that. Immigration, Trump is winning that. Reality. You can see and feel this stuff in your everyday life, and you've been seeing it and feeling it in your everyday life for 3.5 years. Feeling it in your pockets, watching your cities go bankrupt, trying to fund Kamala Harris's migrants. And if you're just living in these states or in cities like Chicago and New York and whatnot, outside of the economy and inflation and watching money pouring in and raining on top of Harris's migrants, you visually see this stuff. I'll never forget, I went to Chicago back home, which is where I'm from. I went to Chicago for Christmas, I believe it was. I went to Chicago for Christmas. And my wife always loves to go downtown because she's from LA. She's from here. So we went downtown, and I'll never forget, man, it's one thing to speak about the migrant crisis and kind of see this stuff from afar, just through articles and videos and whatnot. It's another thing to see it in real time, in real life. And I'll never forget walking through downtown Chicago last Christmas and seeing the women in the streets with their children, and they were all over the place. They were everywhere. While me and my wife and my family were walking, just looking around and stuff. And I really couldn't believe what I was seeing. So once again, I'm just highlighting the reality versus when you're talking about abortion. Come on, man. That's that fear mongering. It's fear mongering. Why is it fear mongering? Is it really that hard to be responsible? Is it really that difficult to be responsible? All the birth control measures that exist, and you're telling me that I don't have to pull up data because we all know this to be true, but I could pull up the data because I've done videos about this before. The overwhelming majority, and when I say overwhelming majority, we're talking about, I'm not gonna give a rough estimate number because then that's when the misinformation police come out. But the over majority of abortions are abortions out of convenience. It's not out of the extreme, it's not from the extreme circumstances that people like to bring up. It's out of convenience. And you're telling me it is so difficult for you to be responsible that now you're making an issue where there's no issue, claiming and pretending that someone is trying to tell women what they can and can't do with their bodies. You can do whatever you want with your body. But if doom becomes you because you're irresponsible, well, that's on you. That's on you. You chose doom. That's what you chose. But once again, that's a choice. The abortion portion is a choice. Economic inflation and immigration, that's something that we're dealing with concerning the reality of having these horrible people in office that are now affecting your pockets and affecting your neighborhoods. Reality versus fear mongering is what this presidential campaign is all about. And that's why Trump is gaining so much more ground from the place that he was a few weeks ago. But let's carry on.
How about this? I think this is really interesting. All right.
Let me rewind it back just a little bit. Sorry.
Only when we get down here to abortion at 16% is where Kamala Harris does particularly well. So 2 of the 3 top issues are issues on which Donald Trump does better than Kamala Harris. So not much of a surprise that he's leading the poll. How about this? I think this is really interesting. All right, choice for president, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. All right, Hispanic voters. 4 years ago, Joe Biden won that vote 66% in the Sun Belt. Look at where we are now. Kamala Harris at just 52%. So Kamala Harris struggling among Hispanic voters. Donald Trump doing considerably better than he did 4 years ago. How about black voters? Kamala Harris, again, leading here by a significant margin, right? She's getting 83% of that vote, but that is significantly short of Joe Biden's 92%. So the bottom line is, in the Sun Belt, which is much more diverse than the northern battleground states up in the Great Lakes, Kamala Harris is struggling among voters of color, Jake.
83% of the black vote in these key battleground states that she's losing as it pertains to the black vote, right? Let me make this bigger. What people need to understand is like that number is still huge, right? It's still huge, 83%. But you got to understand, for black folks, that's progress. That's progress, man. That is progress for black folks. 83% is progress. All right. Some of y'all don't understand, right? Y'all don't understand that that's actually progress. 83 versus 92%. She stands no chance. She stands no chance. Now, mind you, this is, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina specifically. They're talking about, battleground states. But even on a national level, I hate to pull this photo up because it's going to look so fugazi how it's going to be on the screen. It's going to look really, I'm not going to do it. I can't do it. I'm going to compromise the stream and make it look fugazi. But in between 1964 and 2020, we'll say, because that's the last election, Black Americans have voted Democrat anywhere between the tune of 85 to like 90% on average, which is crazy. In that time span from 1964 to now, currently, Black America has only voted beneath 85% twice. In 1992, I believe they voted 82%. And in 1996, it was 84%. Black folks never vote Democrat below 85%. So if this number is any indication of how the national polling is going to look concerning Kamala Harris's black voter turnout and how many people vote for Kamala Harris that are black, It's over. It's over. It's over. That's a knockout blow. It's done. She can't win this. It's over. And she's struggling bad with Black America. She is struggling bad. I want to give my thank yous real quick because we are getting ready to move on to the MSNBC portion, right? So we're kind of at the halfway mark of the stream. So let me give my thank yous out real quick. And I want to I'll start with my man Saul, who's always keeping my family fed. He said, TD telling people to be responsible, unsubscribing. I know, right? How dare I tell people to be responsible? That's completely ridiculous, isn't it? Just be responsible. Life would be a lot better if folks would just be responsible. That's blasphemy. You know, you can't tell people to be responsible. So I understand, Saul, why you're unsubscribing. I get it. I get it. You know, most people are going to unsubscribe after he's making that statement. Shout out to my man, John Guller, who said, Kamala campaign is a joke. Really shake my head. It is a joke. And I do have a tinfoil hat theory on why it's a joke. I mean, I've spoken a few times on why I believe this is a throwaway campaign and that the DNC is actually kind of running a stress test, you could say, on their constituents, on those who vote DNC, and really on America as a whole. But I'm not going to get into all that right now because I would like to expand on that later, but just not right now. But yeah, this is a joke campaign. It's a joke campaign. And I'll say this much concerning my tinfoil hat theory. Kamala, the answers that she gives in these debates and these T-ball interviews, she's doing that on purpose. I don't believe that she's that stupid. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. There's no way that you have a team of people that you're working with and their goal is to help you win an election and you consistently bomb T-ball interviews where you're not even able to recite your script that you keep reciting over and over again. You can never essentially get it right. There's something about that just doesn't make any sense to me. There's something about that that's fishy. It's easy to just say she's, you know, dumb or whatever. But in my opinion, she's bombing on purpose. She's bombing on purpose. But tinfoil hat theory aside, you know, I'll just leave it there for right now. But it's just not adding up. It's something just not adding up. Okay. Shout out to Root Trackers by Yaria. I know I just said that all wrong. I'm sorry, Root Trackers. Root Trackers said, thank you, TD. Trump for mass deportation and closed borders. Oh, I'm right there with you. I am right there with you. And, you know, also, once again, too, Princess Jasmine, she could be a Russian bot like me. But actually, she's a DNC American bot. You know, there's only one real Russian bot, and that's me, who was created by Putin to push misinformation on YouTube to trick Black Americans into voting for Trump. You know me, I'm artificial intelligence powered by ChatGPT and AI. But let's get into the next portion of the stream, right? I want to get into MSNBC. I want to get into the MSNBC portion because these folks at MSNBC are in complete shambles. And I want you to look at the excuse making that this news anchor is going to give us for essentially why the polls are the way they are and why Kamala Harris is essentially going to lose. He's really already waving the white flag in this video. He's honestly waving the white flag already. But I'll play it for you guys right now so we can hear what he says, because there's a lot to really say and unpack as it pertains to what he's getting ready to explain to us. So let's jump into this right now. Please hit the like button if you haven't already.
7 weeks to go. We're in the stretch run of this campaign. Everyone's obsessing over swing state polling on their phones and various outlets' odds for who will win. And the reason for that obsession with the just 7 or 8 states, the new poll in Arizona, is, of course,
he's so salty. Why you mad, bro?
win. And the reason for that obsession with the just 7 or 8 states, the new poll in Arizona, is, of course, that we don't elect our presidents by a popular vote in this country. We have a, frankly, undemocratic system, the Electoral College. It's the reality of how American elections for president have worked for more than 230 years. And our citizens and our parties and our candidates, everyone who's operating covering the election, works within these constraints. That's how it works.
It's only broken when you're losing. I find that very interesting, how it's only broken when you're losing.
That's one of the sort of ground truths of this election. The other ground truth that defines this election and the campaign right now is that one of the two candidates has shown us and told us he will not commit to a peaceful transfer of power.
He's literally lying, and that's why he doesn't have any video footage to back him up. If he would have had an audio clip that says that, or some video footage that would state that that would show that what he's saying is true, he would have played it just now. He's a liar.
Shown us and told us he will not commit to a peaceful transfer of power. Harris-Walz's campaign is, I think it's fair to say, running uphill, in other words.
Basically, they're losing, and there's no victory in sight. We've heard Kamala Harris already state that we are the underdog, and we know that that's most likely coming from her internal polling. And now we have this MSNBC news anchor who's admitting that Kamala Harris is running an uphill battle. And we all know uphill battles pretty much equate to losses. You want to be, have the higher ground. You want to be the one on higher ground, right? You don't want to be the one going uphill, trying to fight uphill. You'll lose pretty much every time. The
thing is, the only option for Kamala Harris and Democrats and the pro-democracy coalition, Popular Front, the only thing they can do is to organize and mobilize and persuade voters, use democratic means to save democracy. And if they win, they can and should strongly defend that victory in court. And if they lose, which is a real possibility, they then must peacefully transfer power. That's the way it works. Those are the only options on the table. However, we also shouldn't ignore how nuts all this truly is. I mean, first of all, the Electoral College is a genuinely perverse system. It's sort of jerry-rigged compromise at the founding convention that we commemorate today on Constitution Day between slave states and small states.
Oh, he's bringing slavery into it. He's bringing slavery into it. Where is it at?
They're gonna put you all back in chains. They're gonna put you all back in chains.
Oh man, he brought slavery into it. The Electoral College was founded on slavery. Okay, man. All right, you're doing the most. But the main part of what I want to talk about hasn't even come about yet, because it's really going to prove how tyrannical the Democrats actually are. But that really threw me. The Electoral College is rooted in slavery, racism, white supremacy.
They're gonna put you all back in chains.
All right, man. Here we go.
I mean, first of all, the Electoral College is a genuinely perverse system. It's sort of jerry-rigged compromise at the founding convention that we commemorate today on Constitution Day between slave states and small states and everyone else. And it results in a world in which we often end up with what is essentially minority rule, particularly in this era. Look at the results over the last 30 years. Since the fall of the Berlin Wall, we've had 8 presidential national elections. The Democratic candidate won the popular vote every time except one, when George W. Bush was reelected in 2004. But of course, Republicans have won the presidency more than once, as you might recall. Thanks to the Electoral College, they got 3 terms in office, 2000, 2004, and 2016.
Really think about what he's complaining right now, because then we're going to get to the next half of this video and close this out. The Democrats are the most tyrannical people in this nation. He's complaining about how unfair the Electoral College is because it gives Republicans a chance to win, despite the fact that out of the last 8 elections, Democrats have won 5 by winning the Electoral College. Look at what's on your screen right now and compare that to what he's saying. He's telling you that it's unfair, that Kamala Harris is most likely going to lose because she will win the popular vote, but will not win the Electoral College vote. And because apparently the Electoral College is rooted in slavery. Because the Electoral College is rooted in slavery, that's why the Republicans are going to win. But yet, once again, In the last 8 elections, Republicans have only won 3 to the Democrats' 5. So why are you crying? Why are you complaining? How does that make any logical sense? How does this argument make sense at all? It doesn't. What he just wants is tyranny. And he's going to further prove that point as he continues to speak. And let him do that. Shout out to my man Saul once again, though, for keeping my family fed. He said that dude really said slave states. Yeah, he had to bring it in. He had to find some way to bring that in because Kamala Harris is struggling with the black vote. So when you're struggling with the black vote, you say like little buzzwords. You just kind of for no reason, you're just talking. And last week, what I had for dinner, Jim Crow, and you just yell stuff out. Yesterday, me and my son went to the movies and we slavery. You just say stuff and you hope that that'll trigger like an emotional response for black people to then run to the polls and vote for Kamala Harris or any Democrat. That's literally what he's doing. But I don't want to get too far away from the point. Let's watch him continue to prove that he's all about tyranny. Let's watch this.
A super
Rewind it back just a little bit.
Not to mention a supermajority on the Supreme Court. To put it another way, in 30 years, the Republicans...
I can't let him walk away with that. Republicans have a supermajority on the Supreme Court. The only reason that Republicans have a, quote, supermajority on the Supreme Court is because, if I'm not mistaken, and I always forget her name, and you guys know I'm horrible with names. When Obama was in office, what was that elderly woman's name? RGB. Those were her acronyms for her. Those were her initials. And they nicknamed her like the notorious RGB or RBG, whatever her name is, Ruth Ginsburg or whatever. Yeah, Ruth something, right? Obama and the Democrats, they asked her to step aside. They said, yo, we need you to step down and step to the side, okay? So that we can bring another one of our folks in because you're too old. You're too old. Step to the side so we can bring another DNC member into the Supreme Court. She said no. She didn't want to. And then she passed while Trump was in office. So whose fault is that? Is that some tyranny? Is that some sort of dictatorship from Trump? Or is that just how the game was played? That's just how the game is played. Because RBG or RGB, Notorious BIG, whatever her name is, Ruth something, she didn't want to step down. She didn't want to step down. And if I'm not mistaken, someone please correct me if I'm wrong. The DNC under Biden right now, RBG, thank you, Notorious RBG. The DNC under Biden right now, did they or did they not ask for the Hispanic woman on the Supreme Court? I believe her name is Sotomayor. That's her last name, Sotomayor. Did they not ask her to step down as well? If I'm not mistaken, the DNC has asked her while Biden was in office. They said, please, we need you to step down. We need you to step down so that we can replace you with another one of our guys who are a lot younger. And if I'm not mistaken, Sonia Sotomayor, yes. And if I'm not mistaken, she didn't want to step down either. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I think that she might be sick with something, maybe an illness. I'm not 100% sure. But if I remember correctly, they asked her to step down and step to the side. And she didn't want to do it. So what you're looking at right now is the stubbornness and the bullheadedness of feminism that's getting in the way of the DNC. This is 2 situations now. I believe 2. Definitely with RBG. Oh, she's diabetic. Okay. Definitely with the Notorious RBG, right? Ruth, whatever. They asked these women to please step down and step to the side so that we can keep control of the Supreme Court, or so that we can at least maintain a balance between Democrats and conservatives. Both times, feminism doomed them. The women said, no, we're not stepping down and stepping to the side. And then Trump gets into office, as he most likely will get into office again. And if doom becomes Sonia Sotomayor, Is it Trump's fault? Was it some dictator tyranny that got another conservative Supreme Court justice in office? No. It's the doing of the DNC and their own ideology. But let's let this man continue.
Not to mention a supermajority on the Supreme Court. To put it another way, in 30 years, the Republican Party was only able to build a true national majority once, but they held the highest office in the land for 12 years.
Stop. This guy's an idiot. This argument is so horrible, it's not even funny. In 30 years, first off, let's understand this. He's crying about the Electoral College, and Democrats have held office 12 out of the last 16 years. In the last 16 years, Republicans only held office 4 years. But the Electoral College is to blame. The Electoral College is the problem. Why? Because it gives Republicans a shot, despite the fact that Democrats keep winning. He just stated, and he's only using this large span of 30 years to be able to say that there's been over 10 years of Republican rule. He's using a 30-year window, and he's crying, saying that in a 30-year period, Republicans have controlled the country 12 out of the last 30 years because of the Electoral College that's rooted in slavery, right? So then what about the rest of the years? What is that, 18? 18 out of the last 30 years, Democrats have been in control. So it sounds like the Electoral College kind of keeps things fair and balanced. That's what it seems like. In a 30-year period, Democrats controlled the country 18 years to Republicans 12 years, right? That's balance. That sounds like balance. And he wants to take away that balance, despite the fact that more times than not, a Democrat's going to win, Electoral College or not. If we're going by the numbers and what he showed us on the screen and everything that's coming out of his mouth, by his logic, Democrats are going to win every time. Or I shouldn't say by his logic, because his logic is twisted, but by the numbers and by the data that he's displaying and what he's articulating, Democrats are going to win more times than not. But God forbid a Republican wins. Now the system is broken and it needs to be thrown away. Once again, these people want tyranny. They want DNC tyranny. They want a DNC dictatorship where you can run your campaign from the basement, never have to speak to the press, never have to do a debate, and just become the president. Kind of like how things work in China.
It's a pretty sweet deal. And let's look at the last two elections, right? In 2016, nearly 3 million more Americans, more of our fellow citizens, voted for Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. Again, thanks to the Electoral College, he became president, made it the Oval Office. In 2020, Joe Biden won with a popular margin of over 7 million votes. Now, the nature of the two coalitions right now and the way it interacts with the Electoral College, is the Electoral College is a kind of like plus few points handicap for the Republicans, right? An incredible weight on one side.
Despite the fact that more times than not, based off the data that he showed us, that a Democrat will win. But carry on with the foolishness. MSNBC is not a real news station. This is a troll YouTube channel. These people are trolling. This guy, Joy Reid, Simone Sanders, and all of that. This isn't real news that's going on over here. I mean, they might as well just. These are content creators. These are content creators that engage in trolling. That's what this is. Content creators that are extremely biased, engaging in trolling. Because this isn't real news and information. You're literally taking and showing data that shows that Democrats will more likely win an election than not, and putting it in front of your face and saying, this is unfair to Republicans. How does that make sense? This man is crazy. MSDNC is correct, Roger Wood. MSDNC is correct. Let me let him finish this out as we round this out and close. We probably got 30 more seconds. Then I'm out of here because I ain't got no more time to tarry.
The Republicans, right? An incredible weight on one side. Depending on how all this shakes out this year, we'll see. Kamala Harris will probably have to win 4 or 5 million more votes than Donald Trump to actually win the election, secure victory, and be sworn in as president.
Kamala Harris will have to compete. Kamala Harris will actually have to compete. That is absurd. That is completely absurd and ridiculous. She'll have to get 3 to 4 million popular votes in order to win. He's upset that Kamala Harris will actually have to compete because God forbid she has to compete. God forbid she has to run an actual real campaign. I don't remember where I heard this from, and I wish I had the clip lined up. But somebody said, one of these news outlets, not the troll station, MSNBC, that's they're trolling, right? But they said Kamala is running not to lose. She's not running to win, but she's running not to lose. And that's really what it seems like. You know, my tinfoil hat theory aside, she's running not to lose. She's like a fighter who's on the ropes, who's just, they're fighting not to get knocked out, right? But they're not fighting to win. They're just on the ropes getting hit, just clutched up like this, trying not to get knocked out. That's what the Harris campaign essentially is. And then you have this guy here who's complaining and saying that this shouldn't be the case. Kamala Harris shouldn't have to compete. And if we can only get rid of the Electoral College, then we will have DNC rule forever. This despite the fact that the DNC typically wins the election more likely than not, Electoral College or not. The DNC will most likely win according to his data and his information that he displayed. But clearly the party, once again, that cries the most about democracy and trying to save democracy continues to show that they are the most anti-democratic. That's what he's proving to you right now. We need to get rid of the Electoral College. Why? Because apparently it's not fair that Republicans actually have a shot when you factor in the Electoral College. Who's really for democracy and who isn't? That's the question that I'll leave you with in closing. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Shout out to Car Hauler Hustle, who said no issue with the Electoral College. When they win, Dems have no shame. Exactly. They have no problem with the Electoral College when they win. But if it looks like they're losing, which it looks like Kamala Harris is going to be annihilated. It does look like it's going to be a bloodbath. It looks like it's going to be a bloodbath. Now they're crying that the Electoral College needs to go. I appreciate you, Sadie. Thank you very much for your contribution to the stream as well. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you all for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and share this video out on your social media platform. Shout out to the 28 of you that are watching this on Twitter. Please migrate over to the channel TD Media Group so you can participate in the lively live chat. And shout out to everybody who's watching on Rumble, because I am simulcasting on Rumble right now. You can follow me on Rumble at TD Media Group. Thank you all for your time. And until the next afternoon, or I should say until the next, I messed up my outro. Thank you for your time. And to the next video, peace, and have a great afternoon. There we go. To the next video, peace, and have a great afternoon. I'll let you guys later, man. Peace.